everyone, and I hope you had a great holiday season. This is the Village Board meeting. I will go ahead and read what the clerk has written for our instructions, which is members of the public will be muted and have their video turned off upon entry. Comments are taken during citizen comments, and if the Village Board accepts comments at other times during an agenda item. When the Village Board starts accepting citizens' comments, members of the public will have the ability to unmute themselves, appear by video by raising their virtual hand after being called upon by the chair. And in this case, I will always ask our clerk to do that. If participating by phone, unmute themselves by pressing 6. Plan on speaking at the meeting. Please email the village clerk ahead of time. This is a teleconference meeting of the Village Board. The president will be leading the meeting and board members will be called upon to speak. If there are members of the public on the call that desire to speak on a topic that is not on the agenda, they'll be provided an opportunity to do so under citizens to be heard. The president may also allow for the public to speak following Village Board member discussion on any item following the Village Board's discussion. To ensure an efficient meeting, members in the public should not speak until called upon to do so. So welcome. We will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
Thank you. Go ahead and call the roll.
Yep. Trustee Menta.
I'm here.
Trustee Backhorse. Does not look to be on. Trustee Carpenter.
I'm here.
Trustee Ursink.
Here.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Here.
And Trustee Warren is not on yet. And President Rosick.
Here.
All right. I'll note their times if they log in.
Thank you. And thank you to Trustee Stokebrand for leading the meeting during the holiday season. Our first order of business is a special order of business number 4 on our agenda. It's a presentation of the Martin Luther King Jr. Day proclamation by the president of the village. And I would like to thank first Bay Bridge for helping the village to write our proclamation tonight and also to coordinate efforts for this day and the honor of this day. I'd also like to thank Chair Sharvita Parker for the HRC, our Human Relations Commission, and also Trustee Warren, who will be joining us in a few, as he is the HRC liaison for our board. I will go ahead and read the proclamation if it's okay with the board. No objections? Okay. Whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advocacy, equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, and challenged all people to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. And whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed immensely in the power of individuation and collective hope to create a brighter future, and whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy includes such landmark United States federal laws, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968, and created a framework to ensure equality and advance justice in the years ahead. And whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us to see the commonalities of our dreams, our hopes, and our fears, the threads, truths, and dignity that bind us together as human beings. And whereas Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed that the R of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, and that it requires all hands and all hearts to keep its course straight and true. And whereas we acknowledge the public health crisis caused by racism, as identified by Milwaukee County's 2019 declaration, and have seen this crisis further laid bare by COVID-19, and whereas we recognize the urgent need to model Dr. Martin Luther King's pursuit of unity, equality, and justice, as also desired by demonstrators across the world and in our neighborhoods in response to the oppression, brutality, and systematic racism that continues to plague our marginalized communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Shorewood supports recognizing this United States federal holiday with unifying civic and community activities to celebrate, educate, and advocate and serve in memory of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The Village of Shorewood encourages all to seek inspiration for personal action by honoring the great legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Is there anybody that would like to speak on the proclamation at this time?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So We do have Sharvita Parker and Trustee Stokebrand with her hand up.
Okay, trustees, let's do the trustees first, and then I'll recognize Ms. Parker. Trustee Lockhorse, was it, or Trustee Stokebrand?
Trustee Stokebrand, yep.
Trustee Stokebrand?
I would just like to say that, you know, with COVID, it feels like here we are, I'm in my silo. I look forward to celebrating with everyone in the community of all race, creeds, and colors. And we can really do this together in the right way. And we're stymied by the pandemic, but, you know, we'll hold on to the dream and we'll do it right when we can safely. Thank you.
And then Trustee Warren.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that we've passed this resolution and read it into the record. I think, as Trustee Stokebrand said, you know, our attention has been focused on COVID so much this year. It's important to keep in mind these crucial, important, you know, holidays and recognize the work of Dr. King, especially as we look to continue momentum from the social justice movements over the past summer, continuing into now, and working and reflecting in our board's work for the next year. So it's fantastic to pass this resolution. I look forward to celebrating the day itself in 2 weeks, and I think this is a great thing.
Chair Parker?
Yes, absolutely. I would like to thank the not only the Human Relations Commissioners, but the trustees for allowing this opportunity for the village to move forward in terms of passing this proclamation to declare the work that Dr. King has set out for us to do as a community. And here it is, 2020, despite the pandemic and the current situation, we want to continue to move forward. It seems that, unfortunately, you know, the pandemic has revealed some unpleasantries, but despite that, we have the opportunity to move forward and persevere and make and effectuate change through our own individual actions. And I'm truly grateful for this opportunity. And I would like to thank the village board members as well and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Parker. Trustee Carpenter?
I thought the proclamation was wonderful, and thank you for bringing this forward to the village board. For me, Martin Luther King Day always means a day of service. And while we are, as Trustee Stokebrand said, you know, all separated, I usually volunteer with my kids, but this year will look a little bit different, and there are still things that we as individuals can do to still emulate that model of service, whether that's just a donation to you know, a food bank, but there are still some things I really would hope that everyone in our community in a COVID safe way can continue to serve our community, because we all really need it right now. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Trustee Carpenter. Any other speakers at this time?
Does not look like it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for the coordination with HRC as well as the Bay Bridge. Our next agenda item is our consent agenda. Items under consent agenda may be acted upon by one motion. If in the judgment of any village board member, consent agenda needs discussion, the item can be placed in the items removed from the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Move. Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Warren, second by Trustee Ursink. Is there any items to be removed?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd like to pull item 5B.
Okay, 5B. Any others? Hearing none, we will vote on the motion to approve the agenda. Or do we do the items removed first?
Yeah, no, motion to approve the consent agenda with item 5B removed.
Okay.
Trustee Warren.
I was just gesturing with my hands. I was not.
No, I'm taking a roll call, sorry.
Oh, aye, yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Trustee Ursink.
Aye.
Trustee Backhorse.
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter.
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Aye.
Who passes 7-0.
Okay, we'll now move on to the item that was removed, 5B, consider regular village board minutes, December 21st, 2020. Trustee Menta.
Yeah, under item 9A, new business, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wait a second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraph. I just want to clarify the bottom of the paragraph. It says, if on a street there was alternative side parking, staff would need to consider marking both sides of the street for the ADA stall to accommodate alternate side parking where available. But actually, what we discussed was there would be the ADA stall on one side. That person's parking spot would not move with alternate side of the street parking. Across the street would be marked no parking. And that is not to accommodate alternate side parking, it's to accommodate the ability for traffic to pass the ADA stall. So I think the minutes need to be corrected.
Is there any objection to Trustee Amenta's change? Okay, seeing none, do you get everything you needed?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other changes? If not, we'll go ahead and make a motion.
I'll move to approve the village board meeting minutes of December 21st, 2020.
Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Amenta, second by Trustee Warren. Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes, I did have one change, and I'm sorry, it took me a little bit to find it. And so I don't know if I need to amend the motion to include this change or how that would work.
Sure, we can withdraw the motion by unanimous consent. Wait for this change by Trustee Bachhorst, which I would suggest. Is that okay?
So will you wait until I make the suggested to withdraw the motion, or you'd withdraw it now so that I can make that change?
There's no objection. We'll withdraw the motion. Okay, it looks like there's unanimous consent. So go ahead, Trustee Bachhorst.
Okay, this would be in item 11, I guess A, regarding the resolution for appreciation for St. Robert's Parish. There is let's see, it would be from the bottom of the page, the third, I guess we'll call them paragraphs, where it says Trustee Bachhorst relayed that a resolution supporting a private institution without recognizing other institutions is not an appropriate use of government time. I don't know if this has been summarized or how we got to that conclusion, but what I was talking about was a private school organization within our municipality without recognizing, the public and other school entities. So I did not in any way mean for that to apply universally, and I wouldn't want my words to be reflected and memorialized as of saying that I would not support any kind of resolution for a private institution as far as appropriate use of government time. So I guess I'd like to change this to private educational institution without recognizing our other community partners or other what's it called, public community partners.
Does that
make sense?
Sure, it just needs to be accurate of what was said. Does anybody have?
Well, is this verbatim? I mean, if we're talking about the intent, or are we talking about a summary? Because I don't think these minutes are verbatim. So I hear what you're saying. So it's an accurate representation of what was said. Yes.
Any objections? I wasn't at the meeting. Nope. Okay. So
can I ask, since we're right above that, it says Trustee Ursink noted that school has been a large burden by a number of institutions, and he did not feel that singling out one educational institution should be highlighted. And well, I don't even know what that means. I don't think he said that, but I don't know what that means. The school has been a large burden. I mean, I know it's a large burden to one of the kids in my house, but I don't think generally I don't know what that even means.
I'm trying to scroll down here to kind of, it doesn't sound like something, it doesn't sound like what I intended to say. So I
maybe we should just say Trustee Ursink did not feel that singling out one educational institution should be highlighted and not others.
I think that sounds good. I mean, that was my sentiment.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. It's a large burden.
Are you okay with that? I mean, did you get that suggested change?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And Trustee Bachhorst.
Okay, the other clarification item, and I guess I'd have to go back and watch this, but I thought that we had voted that this would go on the next agenda, not on a future agenda item. But if that's not the case, I will vote yes with these changes. And if that's actually accurate, we can always reconsider the vote later and amend the minutes. But if anyone remembers, I think Trustee Amenta, you had made the motion. So originally, so I had thought you had said on the next agenda, but if that's not the case, that's fine with me.
Do you remember, Trustee Amenta?
I have no comment.
Okay. would you like a change? Are you suggesting a change, Trustee Bachhorst?
I'm just saying that perhaps what we should do is make the motion contingent upon that just one item. I'd be fine with if Sarah, since it's at the end of the meeting, would look back and see what the actual wording was as far as the motion is concerned, and that we put that in there to reflect it.
We can go to the next agenda item if we all agree, and then come back to it when Sarah checks or Rebecca checks, so that we don't have to reconsider a vote just in case.
I don't even say we have to reconsider at this point. I make the motion contingent upon necessary changes by our village clerk at a later date. That's what I meant.
Okay, so you'd like to make a motion?
So moved.
Do you want to read back that motion so someone can second it?
I move to approve the minutes with these said changes and making the final, I don't even know how you state this, but basically contingent upon the what did you call this? The future agenda item wording being accurate based on our village clerk going back to just that one little section. It's more words than I would like to use, but that's the sentiment. So if someone wants to make that more succinct, please go ahead.
Yes, I believe, and just because I don't want it to be stated where, I believe you're leaving it up to the discretion of the clerk to, we're making a motion to approve them with the discretion of the clerk to change if needed. To insert
Not if needed, just to have this accurately represent what was said. So if it did say on a future agenda item, that's fine. If it's said on the next board meeting, I'd like it to reflect that. And I'm sorry, I don't have that information. So if you want to go ahead to the next item, we could come back to, that's fine. Otherwise, Sarah could probably find that pretty quickly, not at this moment, but later on. And if no change is needed, there's nothing for us to do. If a change is needed, nothing for us to do, she would just change it. And we've done this before where you make motions, contingent upon, tidying up this and that by individuals. But I don't know if that can apply to minutes because this is kind of a different situation.
quick question you can suggest.
So to be honest, at this point, it would just be easier to defer them with the requested changes if I could bring them back to you. That would be the easiest, to defer them to the next meeting.
For the end of the meeting.
Pardon?
Does anyone want to make a motion to defer? Oh, there was a motion on the table. I'm sorry, it was not seconded. We needed clarification. Would anyone like to second the motion? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to defer.
There's a motion. Second motion by Trustee Bachhorst, second by Trustee Ursink. Roll call, Sarah.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink.
Aye.
Enta.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Aye.
Warren.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I as well. I don't think
Okay, I heard an aye, but I didn't know it was you.
I'll vote for it too.
All right.
Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is number 7, public hearing, which we have none of tonight. Number 8 is citizens to be heard. This item is for matters not on the agenda. Discussion may follow comment on non-agenda items, or discussion and action may come at future meetings. Clerk Brockman, is there any?
Nobody has pre-registered to speak. So if there's any citizens that wish to speak at this meeting, if you could raise your virtual hand at this time, we'll call on you. There is nobody, so you can move on.
Okay, thank you. Next item, new business, number 9A, consider resolution 2021-01, absentee voting in an alternative location for 2021. Clerk.
Yes. So before you tonight is a resolution for us to hold our in-person voting next door at the village center in the basement. So we've done it for the last 2 elections in August and November. It worked out quite well. It allows for social distancing and then obviously the ability to have people flow in and out much smoother than at Village Hall. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Trustee Warren.
Just out of curiosity, it seems like the flow is just better and there's more space and it's bigger. Have we given any thought to just making this the permanent location for in-person absentee?
We would still have to pass a resolution every 2 elections. So I don't know if we could pass a permanent one. The trouble we have is we pull typically at least one person away from customer service. So if it's during a tax collection or anything, it does take it down to 1 person. But it's something we could consider for the future and potentially use election workers consistently and have them trained appropriately. So we definitely could.
I mean, I was just thinking for the higher, maybe just for the higher turnout, like presidential elections, where we
Yeah.
know there's going to be a steady stream leading up. Maybe not for primaries and the lower turnout, but
Yeah,
maybe the higher turnout makes sense.
yeah, absolutely.
Trustee Carpenter.
I would like to make a motion. I move to approve resolution 2021-01, moving in-person absentee voting from Village Hall, 3930 North Murray Avenue to the Shorewood Village Center, 3920 North Murray Avenue, Shorewood, for the February 16th, 2021 spring primary election and the April 6th, 2021 spring election.
Okay.
And a motion by Trustee Carpenter, a second by Trustee Bachworth. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll call.
Trustee Amenta.
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
She said aye.
Oh, sorry. Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Bachhorst.
Yes.
President Rosick.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink says aye. 7-0.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is 9B. Consider authorization to hire Public Works Construction Coordinator. And I believe this is on the full board agenda since it is a new position, whereas rather than on consent agenda for filling existing positions. Tyler.
Yep. Thank you, President Rosick. I think the memo explains most. We included the job description, so you can see that before we post. And hopefully we can get this position filled in time in preparation for this year's construction season. One thing we just wanted to note for transparency as we continue to review the position, we're reviewing as far as transportation for the person while they're working. For this first year, we would have more than likely the person utilize their own vehicle and be reimbursed for mileage. That's going to be something, at least for this year, how we'll handle it. We're going to review potentially utilizing like a future police vehicle that has served its life with our police department as a potential vehicle in the future for this position. But for right now, we just wanted to let you know that it would be more than likely reimbursement, mileage reimbursement. And then we would look at some kind of decal to show that they're a village employee. So, but otherwise, we've been working with DPW to get this position finalized for your review. And if you authorize to hire this week, we will post and start the hiring process.
I have a question. Trustee Warren.
Yeah, I was reading through and maybe I missed this, so I apologize if I did, but are there any special steps that we take to make sure that we get a diverse pool of applicants for this position? And if so, could you walk us through those?
Yeah, great question. It's something too, as far as reviewing all of our processes that I would love the Human Relations Commission to do, specifically our policy committee. Typically any public works position, since we're talking public works, we will post in our typical places, which is through the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, the APWA, which is the Public Works Association, specifically the Wisconsin chapter. And then Milwaukee Jobs is a typical place we will post for someone that may not have access to those other two locations. We do some other typical, just, like manager's memo, website, our website specifically, the info board in the library, which typically gets some traffic outside of the village too. So we have some ways that we recruit through that avenue. Right now, I'm working with our payroll specialist on a research project to identify some more diverse avenues to continue to attract more diverse candidates. So I would say it's definitely a work in progress. It's also an item that as we work with the EDI committee and Sam Coleman, it'll be something that I'll be asking some department heads and Sam's opinion on. So, that's our current process as far as how we recruit and get candidates. we don't ask for race or anything like that as far as part of our process. So when we get the applications, we don't know anything about race. So, but at least for recruitment, so you know, that's how we typically go about it.
Yeah, no, and I get that. And thank you for your answer. And it sounds like we have a broad range.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like we do a broad ranging search, and I appreciate that. But I do think that it's something that perhaps we could take to one of our committees to help us to see if there's any resource that we're missing that might help pull in a more diverse pool. And again, I understand that we don't look at race when we get people in the door, but you want to see those slates of candidates that are that reflect the diversity of the community in the greater Milwaukee area. So maybe something we can look at kind of a committee level and bring back up.
Yep, absolutely.
Trustee Menta?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay voting for this, but I have to say, looking at the job description, it is such a wide range from everywhere being like the person who's in charge if Leanne and Joel are both not around, to someone who like does data collection, updates maps, records in place. So that's kind of like very like almost clerical functions. But then what we really want is someone who's a construction inspector. But then they're also going to be, driving a plow and third in command. So it just seems like it's a little confusing to me, because generally a job description would be like, this is a technical position doing technical type duties such as updating maps, GIS, dealing with the public, that kind of thing. Or this is a mid-level position who does not have more paperwork type duties. But this position seems to have duties at all levels of the organization. And I'm not quite sure how you're going to find someone who would be, who you would be comfortable being in charge of the entire department, but who's also going to be happy, dealing with residents' complaints and documenting daily construction project and that kind. I mean, it's just a really wide range of activities that doesn't seem consistent with a single person.
Yep. And can I just add to that? I thought the same thing. Usually it's the main job description is the very specific of what that job. So if we're looking for a construction supervisor or the inspections or whatever it may be, that would be the job description. Then all of their duties as assigned comes last. But I do agree with Trustee Menta, when you're doing a job search to review the qualifications, you do want to know what is the primary function of that position, so that that if that's your qualification, that's what you go for. It does make it a little more difficult as a job search, as someone who's searching for a job, to understand, are they a top manager, or are they, what is the primary function? Trustee Brockworth.
Thank you. So my internet faded out for a moment, so I may have missed if Leanne or Tyler had responded. I'm understanding that this is, I heard the concerns of some of my fellow trustees here, but I also want to know if you guys are okay with this, since you have done a lot of hiring and firing in municipal government at this level. Not so much on the firing side, forgive me, but you know what I'm saying. Like, are you confident, do you feel that this is fine? And if so, I am fine with this, because they are the experts in the field, and this is what they are looking for. So I guess I'd like to hear from them.
Sure. I think who wrote the job description, Tyler?
I wrote the job description.
And I'm sorry, I'd like to say that I'd also like to know if Leanne is okay with it. That's part of my question. So that's fine.
Tyler and then Leanne.
I mean, I can certainly start. I think with some of the things listed at the top of the duties are the highest priority, where they're going to be spending 95% of their time. I'd also like to note, when we do the job posting, we don't post the job description. That's just a guiding document that we have. That's a supporting attached document that people can review. Typically what we post is the job advertisement, which summarizes the main items. And Trustee Menta, I would absolutely agree with your comment. Those in the job advertisement, we want to highlight what this person's going to be doing majority of the time, which are, mainly the first few things that are included in the job description and that you cited. As far as the data is concerned, the only other thing I would mention with the position is it's seasonal based, meaning that what they're going to be doing in the spring, summer, and fall is going to look a little different in the winter when we don't have non-construction tasks. So in the winter, their job may involve some metrics and some other duties that they may not be doing typically on a daily basis in the summer, which their job duties may look different. So it's a little different than some of our other positions where they're doing day-to-day stuff that are kind of at that same level. Because of the seasonal based work, it kind of changes what they do throughout the year. But respect your comments and thank you for that feedback. Leanne, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Leanne?
Yeah, no, I'm in full support of the job description. I absolutely understand, upon first read, it certainly seems like it's a soup to nuts proposition. But the reality of it is that we're a pretty small department. Everybody's got to be involved in a lot of things. And on any given day, Joel and I bounce from technical to customer service to, specialized to mundane. That's just the nature of the beast.
Thank you. I believe the clerk has said Trustee Stokebrand has her hand up.
Thank you. So I just had a question. So I noticed at the beginning there was some confusion. Reports to, it says Assistant Public Works Director on the packet, page 70. And then just lower in the next summary, it says reports to Public Works Director. I think we just want to be very clear. The report here is to Leanne or to Joel?
I can thank, first of all, Trustee Stokebrand, great catch. Thank you. We talked about this with staff earlier today. This was my error. Originally, we had Leanne, Public Works, as the report. And right before we put in the packet, we had a discussion to switch it to Joel, since his functions on a day-to-day basis are going to be a lot more in relation to this position. So I changed it at the top and not in that paragraph. So I would ask that when we approve the authorization to hire, please note that this position we would be recommending to report to the Assistant Public Works Director. And I'll be making sure to modify that job description to make sure it says that before we post.
Okay, so Joel will be doing this person's job performance review each year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so in the hierarchy, we have Leanne and then Joel, and then we'll have new person, construction person, right? And then we have all the foremen. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as the pay range is concerned, the construction coordinator is actually going to be at the same pay range virtually as the foreman.
Okay, and the other foreman, they report to Leanne or to Joel?
Joel.
So everybody reports to Joel and only Joel reports to Leanne. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Total cost on the position. So it goes from 54 to 72, which is a pretty big range. And that does not include benefits, correct?
59 to 72, and that is correct. It does not include benefits.
And so in this non-exempt position, is that like, depending on the plan they pick, is this, that's an extra 10 to 15, right?
It's a little more than that. I think Mark always, I think, budgets for family health insurance, which would be the highest cost. So if we have someone that comes in not taking insurance or takes single, based on the budget, it would reflect actually a savings typically. But remember, this position, only 30% is in the general fund. The other 70% are throughout the capital funds. It'll be assigned to different capital projects that this person will be working on.
Right, but the total cost of the job position is going to be like $65,000 to $85,000, right? At least.
Yeah, I would add on at least. Typically, you would want to add on at least 30,000 for other benefits.
30,000 for benefits. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
I
takes
think
it
that's a nice. If you're looking for a nice general number, I think that would be one that you can utilize.
Good to know. So it's 80 to 100,000. And is this the first time we've shared a position with sewer and water utilities? This is a new one for us?
No, Leanne or Joel, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Actually, currently, we have 6 employees who are primarily funded by the utility. With three would be considered sewer, 3 considered water. Joel's and my salaries are also split, and the utility picks up a commensurate portion. So that this wouldn't be any kind of precedent setting.
Okay,
move.
great. Thank you. I noticed this person has access to the website. So for instance, when we do a street construction project, we get all these wonderful updates every week that say, here's what's happening this week. Will that fall to this new person?
Oh, am I still? Yeah. I think that's the intent. We can sort of work through how that happens. Currently, I do that. But yeah, we'll work that out.
Okay, because I mean, obviously that's a very important, and it seems like a large portion of this person's job is basically human relations with contractors and residents, right? It's making sure contracts are fulfilled the way they should be and that residents are notified. And so this to me is like a large part of this person's job is human relations, which is great. I just wanted to make sure then that person has access to the website to update it, you know, as has been done so well. And where in the office will this person go? Do we have the technology, the desk, the computers that this person will need?
Wonderful question.
Yeah.
I can, do you want to do that too, or do you want me to do that, Leanne?
I can, we have a temporary solution, so to speak. For the immediate future, we're going to be converting the DPW conference room to an office because, as you know, those of you who have toured the building, we do not have any available office space. So for the time being, we will operate without a conference room, which, you know, in the COVID era is not a particular hardship, but that's probably not a long-term solution. So as we kind of work through some of our other staffing reviews, you know, that we'll talk about a little more in our next agenda item, that is something that we do have to develop a long-term plan for.
Okay, thank you. And then I had one more question was, and it kind of relates to something we'll be dealing with the next issue is the DPW organizational analysis. So adding this person, I'm wondering how that fits into the mix of, you know, transferring some duties to the customer service at the village hall when we haven't done that study yet. And so I will withdraw that item because I think it's more relevant to the next question. And I'll support the new position. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stokebrand. Trustee Carpenter, and then I have some, Trustee, I think if you do, we can go to you and then I'll have to answer mine. Trustee Carpenter.
I just had a question about what Tyler had said regarding the car for the, I think what you were saying was for the first year, right? That they would be driving their personal vehicle. I'm just wondering how that typically works with insurance, and I know that they're reimbursed for mileage, but how does that typically work when somebody's driving their personal car for all of that?
And who doesn't drive the personal car?
Sorry, I didn't hear that last part, but you know, to answer your question, I mean, usually if someone's, you know, operating a vehicle during work hours, we would, you know, you would want them to use some kind of municipal vehicle. There's not one available, nor do we have one, you know, in the budget that we just adopted for 2021. We do have a police vehicle that is for sale this year. It's currently under auction. So we're seeing what the status is of that. But anytime we, you know, have a vehicle that we put up under auction, we include some revenue, which, talking with Mark, I think he was estimating 4,500 for the police vehicle for this year. So, you know, at the time being, you know, for someone to utilize a personal vehicle for reimbursement, I don't know if that would be out of the ordinary, but I think something long-term, to be able to have them utilize a municipal vehicle would be something that would be preferred in most situations. And then for a liability insurance perspective, they're using their own vehicle. Under mileage, the reimbursement, usually we go off of the state, which they establish what that rate is. And I think that also includes maintenance is concerned. If their vehicle got into an accident, Becky, do you have any idea on that? As of right now, I don't have an answer on that, but Becky, I don't know if you have an answer on what would typically happen in that circumstance.
Rebecca?
It's been some period of time. We would need to consult with the insurer, but my understanding is if they were performing village business, that it would be something that a claim would be filed through our insurer for, unless Attorney Bayer has a different advisement. But that's something that we will verify.
Yeah, that's right. And if he was injured, if he was injured in an accident while operating on the job, he would also be covered by our workers' compensation insurer as well.
Thank you. Trustee Carpenter, are you completed?
Yep, no, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Ursing?
I'd just like to make a motion. So I move to authorize staff to hire for the construction coordinator position and amend the 2021 HR manual so the construction coordinator is a non-exempt position in the salary ranges assignment appendix.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Ursink, a second by Trustee Warren. I will go ahead and ask my questions then. First, thank you, Trustee Warren, for bringing up making a future policy or some adjustments if we have a policy on hiring for equality purposes, equity purposes. I would just like to mention that the Department of Workforce Development has a job search requirement for regular unemployment, non-COVID, and it might be a good area to coordinate with to find some diverse applicants. Just wanted to throw that out there if I'm not around. For the police vehicle, I think this question's for Tyler. You mentioned it's preferred that all of our village employees have a village car or village vehicle to utilize. Are there village employees that do not have village cars to utilize?
Well, I should have prefaced, if they're using it on a daily basis. I mean, obviously, like myself, or some, a lot of our village hall staff, we don't. But this is a position that will be driving very frequently. So, as I talked with other municipalities that have this, most, not all, but most do offer a municipal vehicle because of how frequently they utilize the vehicle for work business.
And thank you for that answer. I believe we have an inspector car that they share, correct? The inspectors. Do we have a car for our inspectors?
Correct. Yep, correct. And that's at Village Hall, correct.
Right. Okay. So the only concern I have with that, and maybe not just for this position, but we need to just be very careful. We did not budget for a vehicle, nor were we advised when we adopted the budget that we would need to budget for a vehicle if we adopted this position. It sounds like it's coming out from staff now. If we do utilize a police vehicle, I assume that means a police vehicle is $55,000 and we replace them every 4 years according to our replacement plan. So I just want to be clear that we're not adding an additional vehicle beyond those police vehicles, that we will utilize one that's been used and maybe not as safe. That's why we're auctioning them. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. I think what the comment I was trying to make is, we would try to, our intent would be not to come to the board for a future budget and ask for a brand new vehicle, that we would try to repurpose or use like very similar what we do with the inspectors, perhaps, is use one of those police vehicles if we can. So, that's where we don't have it in the budget this year. Mileage reimbursement, I think will be fine. We're still looking at the current status of the current police vehicle that is being replaced this year, that we allocated one police car in the budget. And if we're, able to utilize that perhaps for this position, great. If not, we can look at a future replacement that's already on the schedule and utilize one of those 4 or 5-year-old police vehicles in that manner.
So the only cost then by doing this today, what you're notifying us is the cost may be in the future, the loss of the vehicle replacement. So like about 4,500 plus mileage, potentially gas and insurance, and additional insurance. Is that correct?
Sorry, you cut out, but I think from what I heard, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to know, I had the same question in budget for the job description. I do look at job descriptions when I do look at the posting, but I look at the actual job description for government jobs when I've applied in the past. We talked a lot about, I think Trustee Stokebrand mentioned a lot is weighted on contracting. And I believe I mentioned in budget, isn't that Joel's job description? The large majority is to do DPW contracting for the assistant DPW director. Maybe Leanne or Tyler?
Sure. I believe Joel's job description does specifically address contract administration, but a large portion of that is the administration of service contracts, our turf maintenance, recycling, crack filling, that type of contract maintenance. He particularly due to his education and background and previous job experience, has taken on the role of contract administration for infrastructure projects. Prior to Joel's coming on board, that was primarily my responsibility, but that is his background. So he's an excellent candidate and he does an excellent job at that. But it takes an incredible amount of time. So I think with his background, as Tyler said previously, he is the best candidate for the immediate supervision of this new position because he has that background himself.
Thank you. The question I was asking was, what specifically we are delegating from the assistant DPW's director's job description to this position? Is there a different in contract management?
Leanne, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the things that we're incorporating in this new position, we would contract out. So a lot of this Joel wasn't doing to begin with. We were having an outside party do. So all we're doing is bringing this in-house.
Inspection services. Construction.
The daily inspections we had previously contracted. There is still a significant amount of oversight that's required to manage the contract inspection. So rather than Joel doing contract administration for contracted inspectors, that role just shifts a bit to supervision of an employee who is now taking on that responsibility. If that helps.
Maybe I just needed to see them side by side. I won't dwell on it, but I believe there's some either transfer of duties or there's duplication somewhere in there of contracts. I just don't know the difference of what Joel does in this position, if it was a shift or if it's totally different contracts. Okay, and my last thing was I think that might have been it. Yep, that's all I had. So I will be voting yes. However, I do believe the job description is too vague. It could be more specific, and I also appreciate that on the record we're not going to have any huge expense for a vehicle. Thank you. Trustee Stokebrand and then Trustee Bockhorst.
I'll cede to Trustee Bockhorst because I've already spoken on this once.
Trustee Bockhorst.
I'd like to call the question. But I'm sorry, I won't call it. I'll go ahead, Kathy. I withdraw that. You had something.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to move along, guys.
I just wanted to ask, so when we have a project that's major MMSD, right? So the Southeast Sewer Connector, and we have like Lake Drive, what component of that project is our responsibility for inspection and what is the state's or what is MMSD?
Well,
maybe that's
a rabbit hole. That's quite a rabbit hole we could go down.
Okay,
but very generally speaking, the inspection for those projects are the responsibility of the project. So for MMSD's project, MMSD will have its own inspectors, and they will be inspecting for construction quality, meeting construction specifications, that sort of thing. They, not to say that they would disregard Shorewood or resident concerns, but that isn't going to be their primary objective. So we anticipate that there will be a significant amount of time necessary to kind of help Shorewood residents through that project, answer questions, field any concerns, address any of those that we can address as they relate to construction inconvenience or that sort of thing. So there'll be a significant amount of time involved for both of those projects, even though we would not be the primary field inspector of record.
Okay, so basically it gives us a seat in where we're going to be in the room where it happens.
Well, we would be anyway, but this really gives us the ability to more quickly address any resident concerns or issues and just be able to handle that far more fluidly than we could right now.
Okay, thank you. And then I just, again, would ask the village departments to consider an electric vehicle. This seems like a perfect opportunity, although there's nothing wrong with recycling, nothing wrong with recycling an old police squad, because that's, you know, recycling too. So anyway, thank you.
Nobody else has any questions or comments. I'm going to change my vote. I had said I was going to vote yes. I'm going to vote no. And I just like to state the reason, and then we can make a motion. The reason being is that I do believe we are, for a small village, we are a little bit top heavy, and I'm concerned about that in the delegation of duties for the amount of employees that we have. And I would like to have waited to fill the position until after we had discussed the organizational analysis and it had gone to committee. So with those reasons, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion.
There's already a motion and a second.
Okay, can you please read the motion and then we'll take the roll call.
Yes. It is to authorize staff to hire the construction coordinator position and amend the 2021 HR manual so the construction coordinator is a non-exempt position in the salary ranges assignments appendix. All right.
Go ahead.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
Aye.
Trustee Backhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Ursing.
Yes.
President Rosick.
No.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get my agenda here organized. All right. So our next item on the agenda is 9C. Consider next steps for the Public Works organizational analysis. Rebecca? Rebecca?
I believe that Tyler was going to start with this one.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just getting the right page up, my packet. I can start it off and then I'm going to have Leanne talk a bit, since I was the one that administratively helped with the initial stuff or steps with the org study. And then as we are now getting into the implementation phase, that baton's going to go more on DPW's end. But we all met together to identify some recommended steps to proceed with the Public Works org analysis. If you remember in the study, which I did copy for all of you for your reference, I think there were about 27 different recommendations. So after we reviewed those, we tried to identify how to proceed with those recommendations, understanding the workload that our management staff and DPW will have for 2021 and other staff that is not just management. We, based on items that we may already started working on or need to start working on due to certain time constraints, we identified the 8 recommendations that were included in the packet. we summarized each of those in the memo and identified which exact recommendation that if you wanted to go back for more detail in the analysis you could do. But we think this is a pretty manageable workload. If you adopt these as the priorities for to implement with the DPW analysis, we'll be, as we move forward, we'll be giving updates with the DPW standing or the Public Works Standing Committee moving forward. Very similar on what we decided to do with the police org study. Leanne, do you have any comments at all?
Leanne?
I don't have any specific comments. I can summarize the 8 items if you'd like me to do so, or you know, if you've read them in the memo and are comfortable with them, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody like them read? Trustee Stokbrand?
So I have, since I'm on the DPW committee and we haven't met yet to go over this, some of these I think look great, and I appreciate staff for taking the initiative to get the ball rolling, because I know this was June, but wow, lots happened since June, right? But I think I'm really, it's great that some of these things are moving ahead. I have to question the, you know, and this is because it was probably before my time, shifting this responsibility to customer service at the Village Hall when we haven't done the Village Hall organizational study yet, and we're adding a person to DPW. I guess I would hesitate to go all in on recommendation number 3. And I would want to hear from staff about, you know, why I should support that when we haven't really figured that out yet, in my view. I did have a question too about why some of these things that do seem to be, you know, what in my view are sort of low-hanging fruit, operational issues, beginning with number 16, 17. What is an RFQ on number 18, please? This is page 86 of the packet, RFQ. Anyway, some of these seem like things that we should be doing right away anyway too. From the study recommendation, number 16 and 17, those to me seem like things that should be moved ahead on. I do have questions about shifting the workload unless that's been done by the previous village board and it's, you know, a done deal and I just was not here then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can start answering some of those questions, and then Leanne, feel free to come in.
One at a time. So let's address the first one of Trustee Stokbrand's, which was the shifting of this staff responsibilities.
Yeah, so that would be recommendation 3, right, for the customer service. So one of the things that we're doing right now is just doing some cross training organizationally, where I don't think we're trying to cross train customer service at Village Hall, that they would be able to address more public works related questions. There's a lot of times where residents will call, they don't know the DPW number, but they know the general Village Hall number. So they'll call customer service at Village Hall with a DPW related question. I would agree that anybody in this meeting hates to be forwarded somewhere else. They would love for their inquiry to be resolved right away. So that's our intent. First of all, is continuing that training for customer service, that instead of transferring the call to DPW, that they could try to potentially respond to that inquiry up front. If our admin assistant at DPW is gone, Leanne and Joel are the ones that are answering the phones at DPW. And that's something that we would, you know, another reason why we want to increase our cross training with customer service at Village Hall, so that if the admin assistant is gone on vacation or any leave, that we could have the phones transferred to Village Hall customer service to help in those situations. So for that recommendation, that's what we're trying to help.
How much vacation does this person have?
I don't have that up front. It's an employee that's been here for 15,
She's
20.
been here over 20 years, so she has 4+ weeks of vacation.
Okay, so that's an issue, right? But we do have this new person. With the new person we just approved hiring, he or she cannot answer those questions.
But then
Their job is to be, they're an inspector. Their job is to be in the field. They will not be in the office.
A large part of their job description involved working with the public, right?
Right, but that's field related questions. My expectation is much of that work would be done either off a mobile phone from the field or actual in-person conversations with the residents on the site. I don't expect this person to spend much time in the office specifically.
And then
the job description says 2 to 4 hours in the office, right? A day, at least 2, right?
That will vary seasonally. During construction season, this person will be in the field all day, every day.
We should modify that job description then.
I'm just saying we're adding this, and maybe this is, prologue because you've all decided this before I was elected, but so we're adding this component to the village hall staff, and Manager Ewald and Assistant Manager Burkhart clearly are okay with that, right?
Clear. I just want to make sure before I say yes that we're okay with what?
Adding those job responsibilities to the village hall staff, public service or customer service. We're taking DPW customer service and moving it to village hall customer service. And this is all a done deal and everybody's good with it, right? No additional staff or what?
Just in DPW.
Well, I don't know if I would say it's a done deal. I think right now what we're trying to do is trying to improve customers or the customer service at Village Hall's ability to answer DPW related questions so that if they get questions up front, that they can be able to respond to them instead of transferring the call. And then B, if someone is gone for a few weeks, when someone calls 2650, the DPW number, it automatically transfers the Village Hall for them to be able to assist at those times. So those are the steps that we're proposing at this time, but nothing further. Becky, would you agree? I just want to make sure.
I would agree. And I think it's important within our organization that there is some level of cross training so that we have more than one person who can assist. Many times, and most times in many areas in our departments, we only have one person who performs their particular function. If someone is not there responding to phone calls, that means that our director, our assistant director, is not only going to be doing what they're doing, but also needing to respond to daily inquiries from the public that come in on their general line. So we're looking to find ways to provide some redundancy and bandwidth with the few people that we do have, and cross train. What I wasn't aware of is that when customer service was initially formed, it was envisioned that public works, customer service would flow through in some way, shape, form, Village Hall, under how they had collaborated it under that new system. And then we had flooding that happened and a bunch of other things that occurred at the same time that just precluded that from being put at the forefront. So there's always been a concept of cross training and vision, and it's something that I think it's important we pursue.
Can I ask a question? I just want to ask a question about this topic before we move on to Trustee Stokerbrand's other questions. And that because I also
wait, Trustee Stokerbrand, if that's okay with you. I know that you had 3 questions.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Trustee Mann.
I was also concerned about this item because, when we were talking about parking and we were asking if customer service staff could keep track of how many on-street parking permits are given out per unit so that the same unit couldn't ask for like 6. And we were told absolutely that it was too great a workload and there was no room for that. What could it be? 10, 20, 30 households that you might, well, I guess you have to keep track of it for everyone, but we were told there's no room, no bandwidth at customer service. So it kind of confuses me why we were told, no, there's nothing else they can take on, but apparently they can take on 30 calls a day. That's a lot of calls from DPW.
Tyler?
The only way I can respond to that is right now, customer service is already getting the phone calls for DPW. It's happening today, tomorrow. People don't know the DPW number, so they may call Village Hall, and Ann or Terry are transferring it to DPW. One of the benefits of the cross training is instead of transferring the call, if they're familiar with some of the DPW operations, they can answer that call without transferring, which I think from a customer service perspective is a nice improvement.
Well, yeah, you can repeat what you've already said, which just lengthens our meeting time. But that doesn't address the point I made, which was that we, the board, who had a desire to have something done, were told no time. But now you're saying there is time. Anyway, you don't have to answer. There really isn't an answer. I am not in favor of this. I would prefer that time go to monitoring the number of permits for parking.
Thank you, Trustee Menta. Any other questions on this item of transferring of duties? Trustee Bachworth and then clerk.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think Trustee Stokerbrand still had a couple of questions, but I'm ready to move on and vote on this. I mean, Kathy, I'm sorry, Trustee Stokerbrand, I know you had a few things yet.
Did you have
but
did you hear my question? I apologize. Did you hear my question? Does anyone have any questions on this topic? And then if not, we'll move back to the clerk has a point, I think, of reference, and then we'll move back to Trustee Stokerbrand. Clerk, no? Okay, Clerk Brockman.
Yep. So I just want to clarify something with the public works calls, if that helps anybody. Terry and Ann do try to answer, you know, like what day their leaf collection is, or, you know, basic calls. We do transfer calls right now if like somebody's garbage was missed and they need to go back. We can't handle that kind of thing for them at this point. So it would be kind of understanding some of that. But we do already answer a chunk of those calls, you know, for basic information and direct them where they need to go. It will add time. You know, I can't say that Diane and I won't be picking up the phones, but that is what the element of customer service is. So.
Thank you. Anybody else on this topic? If not, I have one comment. I agree with Trustee Stokerbrand and Trustee Amenta that I do believe customer service is very jam-packed.
I do.
Approved. Okay, you'll be next. And we just approved a new position, the village board, to handle 2 to 4 hours in the office to take resident calls. So Trustee Bachworth. And then
I guess one of the things that I'd like to remind us is that I'm hearing from staff, I'm hearing from the village manager, the assistant village manager, and the customer service department that they have the bandwidth to handle this. It might be different from other requests that others on this board have made regarding what we feel that they have the capacity to do. But what I'm hearing from the managers and the village managers that there is a capacity to do this. I also am, so I'm just wondering, I get that, you know, we're here to ask questions, but we're getting into the weeds and we're getting into the operational weeds. And I'm not sure that we're qualified to do that. So if Leanne is comfortable with this, the village manager is comfortable with this, Tyler's comfortable with this, and I know that this village staff talks to the other people, including Diane and Terry and everyone else who runs that customer service desk, then, you know, I like that this village board wants to ensure that our staff is being taken care of and that they have the resources necessary in order to do the job that our village demands. But I also want us to remind us, like, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They're telling us that they're okay with this. I'm not sure it's up to us to tell them that, no, you're not okay with this. So anyway, that's my issue that I have right here. But I'd like to move on and like to hear what more and how we're going to, regarding considering the next steps. What exactly, staff, are we supposed to go through this one by one and consider all of the steps in this? Or are you looking for direction from us?
Trustee,
no, that
I have said that if there's any more on parking, and thank you for your comments on that, we'll go back to Trustee Stokerbrand and then.
Why are we talking about parking at this point?
I'm not sorry about parking, but about customer service transfer. Trustee Stokerbrand.
Okay, so I just noticed, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve these 1 through 8 with the exception of number 3, which says route all customer inquiries to customer service staff in the clerk. So at DPW, would we change the phone system so there's no DPW customer service phone number anymore? It would all go through Village Hall?
Rebecca.
Tyler, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you are the author of the memo, but I think that if we're getting hung up on the all, I think right now what we are looking to do is to cross train and have people ready to be put into position when they're, we have someone on vacation or that when that area needs help to be able to jump in so that there is coverage versus needing an additional body within that office or a second position to cover in times of absence of this position. We do want to improve how people can respond to some general questions and make people more aware of how that operation works. But Tyler, you can jump in and correct me if I'm incorrect.
Yeah, the language in the bold print was the exact language used by the consultant.
Okay, so I guess I would move if the chairman will entertain a motion. Is it okay?
I know there's other points to the study that need to be discussed, but it's fine to make a motion when you like, as long as we have other discussion.
Okay, so I will move to approve the proposed 2021 priorities from the DPW org study with the exception of recommendation number 3.
Do we have a second?
I'd like to have that removed.
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I do want to allow further discussion because there are other points to the study. Trustee Amenta.
Yeah, I mean, what concerned me is not so much what's included, but what's not included. Number 5, develop a comprehensive village capital asset management plan. Number 6, use the village capital asset management plan to refine and prioritize annual work plans, blah, blah, blah. And to me, that was, the essence of the DPW study was they couldn't talk to us about service levels, about staffing levels, about vehicles, about the facility, because they said first we need to have, decide what we want to be doing and how we want to manage all of our capital assets. That was the first step. So I really don't understand why we've raced to hiring people and all this other stuff, but we are deciding to skip what is essentially a very important first step in order to be able to make reasonable decisions about the department. So I would like to include develop a comprehensive village capital asset management plan. Of course, I've been asking to include that in the village work plan along with open records for many, many years. But when the consultants seem to have said the same thing and have really said we cannot make intelligent decisions without looking at these things. So I'm not sure what the rationale was to ignore that recommendation.
And I want to support that because I've been on the board for 6 years, and every time in budget, that is exactly the reason we can't make any changes to DPW as a board, because of what Trustee Menta just said. And so I also asked Tyler in agenda meeting setting, what did the board vote on as priorities last meeting? And I believe in the top priorities was capital planning. So I do want to ask the same question. Tyler, Leanne?
Leanne, you want to go first on this one?
I can start, sure. When we individually prioritize some of these 27 or so recommended items, I think, or 24, excuse me, we all agreed that all of them were certainly worthy of review and attention, but that there was no way that we could do all of them immediately. And we kind of put them in buckets of short-term, mid-term, long-term. Capital asset management planning was one of my top priorities. But I think looking at the workload that we have as a department and as a village over the next year to two, there just was no way that we could commit to completing that item in 2021. It's certainly my intention to begin work and do meaningful work on that. I simply cannot, there's no way we'll have that completed in 2021. And I think the items that you have on the list before you are things we were looking at and had every intention of actually completing and being able to check as, done on the list by the end of this year.
Okay. Maybe because I'm a planner, but Trustee Stokebrand, did you have further questions?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, the capital asset plan, asset management plan, which is, I believe, on of the page 85 of the packet. So number 5 and 6 can't be done in 2021. What about number 16 and 17 under operational issues? Develop standard operating procedures, create staff development. This to me looks like low-hanging fruit. I mean,
well, we can certainly work on staff development plans. Again, we have a really, really big, huge, heavy infrastructure projects coming up that take a significant amount of our time in addition to regular daily operations. They may be low-hanging fruit, but they aren't necessarily quick low-hanging fruit. When we're talking about developing standard operating procedures, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of tasks that we would need to develop a standard operating procedure for. Very important stuff. But I mean, we're talking 50 to 60 different standard operating procedures. There is an incredible amount of work to be done here. And we have to be strategic about how we do it. I'd love to be able to say we're going to get all 24 of these done this year. The reality is that is probably not feasible.
Okay, so what would you say for those two, the capital asset management plan, which clearly is a board priority, those number 5 and 6, tell me what year you think those could be done. And it's not just you, I mean, the village hall needs to be involved too. And police and fire are pretty much set right now, but it's not just your department. And also 15 or 16 and 17, can you give me an ETA on what year you think you could have those done?
As I mentioned, it's my hope to begin work on them this year. It's certainly a goal to have them substantially complete by the end of next year. Barring any interesting worldwide developments, natural disasters, that fun sort of thing, right? But that's my hope.
Okay, so this seems to me is like what we have to work in with our DPW committee when we go through the org study, right? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Leanne, and Tyler and Rebecca also.
Trustee Warren, but point of information, Tyler, can you just tell us what we'd be voting on today? Like you did give us, just to be clear for the board, this is your recommended work plan to work on with committee, correct, for the next year. So if it's not on that list, you as a board member, if you would like to see it on the list, you would put it in the motion, because otherwise, or you could take something out, but otherwise you are voting on your action plan to refer to committee to work on for the next year. And they can come back to board with different recommendations, but those would be the topics.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to clarify so people knew.
Yep.
Trustee Warren.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I would certainly support, like the capital asset management plan and inserting that. And at least, we're not going to necessarily hold you to finishing it this year, but at least getting something on paper where we're getting a start on it and at least making some progress there. And if we get it done, that's great. If it takes 2 or 3 years, at least we're working towards the goal. As for the recommendation number 3, my preference would be that stay in. I think if there's I'd like to see if there's some efficiencies that could come out of that, and maybe revisit it in a couple months, see how it's going. If it's not proving more efficient, if it's proving less efficient, then maybe we do away with it. But I would certainly be in favor of including recommendation number 3. And I guess my question coming to that, sorry.
Recommendation 3 is the transfer to customer service?
Yes.
That is, okay.
And I guess my question would be, we have a lot of recommendations contained in this study, and that's great. By selecting these 8, are there any time-sensitive recommendations that we are losing kind of the opportunity to pursue by focusing on these 8? Is there anything that we can't then pick up in 2022 and say we want to do this, or is everything still on the table? I just want to know that we're not losing anything by by focusing on these 3 for 2020, or these 8 for 2021?
Tyler.
Leanne might be better to answer that, just knowing the workload of DPW. But when we went through the list, these were the ones that we thought most time sensitive. So I don't see any of these like us coming back to you a year from now saying it's too late to implement. I don't think the door is closed on anything.
Okay, I want to make sure that we don't foreclose it. We know the study is a good study. We paid a lot for the study. I want to make sure that we don't end up, by opening these doors, closing different doors within the study itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I saw that. I just want to make sure that my view is aligned with yours, or it's consistent.
Sure.
Okay, is that all, Trustee Warren, for now?
That's it for me for now.
I just want to make sure everyone's being able to speak once, and then I'll go back around the table. Trustee Carpenter.
Thank you. The DPW study was, I think, the first study that I had any participation in, and had a lot of questions of sort of the reasoning why we would do this study in the first place and what was necessary and what we were hoping to get out of this study. So for me, I think having that plan and, that was in my mind why I was on board with the DPW study, was so that we could understand and we could plan what were our service levels and what were our expectations. So I think for me to not have that be included as a priority sort of feels like we are, aiming in the dark, and we, don't really know where we want to land. I think that there's a couple of other things, that sort of fall underneath that. Number 15 within the within the study, I think if we had that service or that plan, that we could, have some additional guidance, and some of those other things would fall underneath that plan. So for me, that to me is really important. And to Trustee Warren's point, if we're not completed by 2021, it's okay. But I think that needs to be our focus. I would even say before anything else, because without a plan, I don't know what we follow. So, I know I've been sort of quiet, just listening to everybody else's comments, but that's something that's pretty important to me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody that hasn't gone? I just had one comment, and then I'll pass it to Trustee Stokebrand to go for a second round. I agree with Trustee Amenta, Trustee Warren, Trustee Carpenter's comments, and Trustee Stokebrand on capital planning, capital asset planning. I'm a planner by degree, and I guess that's maybe why I feel so strongly. But I do believe that a comprehensive look at our asset management and at capital planning will guide our service levels, and then we can make much better budgetary decisions. We are in crisis with being able to make those decisions when we get to our 4 weeks or 4 sessions of budget. We don't have the information necessary, and so I wouldn't want to postpone that for another year. For our next board, I certainly want to prepare them to be able to make those decisions as budgets keep getting more restrained through state revenues being declined and of such. So having that information will certainly help future boards. So that would be my number one priority. And I wasn't here for the last meeting to have voted with the board as well. And I believe that, Tyler, you mentioned that was one of the top board priorities. So with that, I will pass it around for a second time. Trustee Stokebrand.
Leanne, I know I talked about this with you once when I visited the yard, but tell me the significance of reviewing the transfer station this year. Is it we have a contract that's up with Whitefish Bay, and so that's time sensitive?
We do not have a contract that is expiring, but we've been working over the course of the last year to 18 months with the Village of Whitefish Bay, just as a review of kind of the regular operations and how closely or not, I guess. So we have a transfer station agreement with the Village of Whitefish Bay that spells out exactly how that relationship is to work and what each of the community's respective responsibilities are. Over the years, we've strayed this way and that way a bit on certain things. And so kind of have been working with my counterpart in Whitefish Bay, to bring that around and sort of put that back on track. And there are a couple of different examples of some of the things that because of different equipment and different communities have adjusted their uses. The original agreement is very, in certain senses, it's very broad. In other senses, it's incredibly specific. So we've just really been working to try to make sure that all of our operations are aligned within the framework of that agreement. So that's one of the, we need to continue to do that, and we're very close. But there's a couple of things I think that we're going to be coming to you in the first part of this year to address, particularly the Saturday operations, some of the billing operations, and that sort of thing. So I think it's absolutely necessary that be on the list that remain on the list for this year.
Okay, and is part of this the question of whether or not it stays at Shorewood or maybe moves to Whitefish Bay?
My initial concern that's not part of it, but that was most definitely the consultants. We had many hours and minutes of conversation about the location of that station and how much time it takes Shorewood to maintain that operation. So the consultant was definitely looking at the benefits to the village to move that off site. I think that is a longer term conversation. In the immediate term, I think we need to make sure that Whitefish Bay is appropriately bearing their fair share of the resource, the financial, the time costs of the operation of that. And so that's really what I'm focusing on for this year.
Okay, and so we also, I know in the alternate service delivery, we talked about renegotiate the existing televising truck shared services agreement. That doesn't come to the top either this year. That piece of equipment is relatively new. I think it's certainly under 5 years old. So, we have an ownership share in that. In order for us to exit that contract agreement, we would have to buy the other communities out. At this point, I'm not certain that is a pressing priority. As time passes and we reach a point where that equipment has reached the end of its useful life and we're talking about replacing it, I think that's a more appropriate time to have that conversation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have further comments? I believe there's a motion unless it is amended. Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes, thank you, President Rozek. I do have a couple of extra comments, and I love that we're taking another look at this and that we're moving into the implementation phase. I do know that I'm fine, as Trustee Warren had stated, with keeping all of the recommendations in here and moving forward. I guess if we wanted to compromise on the recommendation number 3, which was route all customer service inquiries to customer service staff, that maybe we could remove all and say as dictated by Director Bushlick and Assistant Director, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? If that's something that is a hang up for some of you, because I do want to follow the recommendations. I do see the consolidation of services internally within our organization and potentially cost saving measures, as well as Director Bushlick had mentioned, and Tyler and others, that cross training is necessary in an organization. And, as we all know, we are top heavy because all local governments need certain levels of service and as well as administration. So relative to a larger place will look top heavy, but these are certain key necessary functions. So I would be, again, I would just change that one word or just go back with the original recommendation. I did have a question though. The analysis and recommendations is, which provides the recommendations, these 8 recommendations that we're kind of voting on today, had mentioned that number 1 was retain current staff positions while considering appropriate service levels and alternative service delivery options. And I know that Trustee Carpenter had stated about, something along the lines of determining what an appropriate service level is for this village. And that's something that, again, we do have a lot of data on in the past and what our residents have specified, but perhaps we do have another, I believe we have another survey going out village-wide. I could be mistaken, but that's something that we can definitely, drill down in there. I guess my question is regarding to that point of maintaining or keeping the same level of staff or et cetera. Let's see, it's number, I think it was on number 4, but oh, maybe it was 5. Where am I going with this? I did have a question, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because I know only a couple of us went against the stood with the recommendation by the consultant regarding staff and others, but we did delete, or I should say reduce a staffing position regarding the maintenance, the vehicle maintenance. And that did go against, so by adopting this as is, which was based on the 2020 budget, I guess that's just kind of a nuance. Some of you, those of you who voted to reduce that position might want to maybe consider amending this. I wouldn't support that amendment because, this was pretty clear, but I guess I'll just move to amend the motion if that's okay, to include item 3 as well. Sorry, that was a long roundabout way to get there, but
I know we don't have an attorney here, but point of just parliamentary procedure item. Can you amend a motion specifically to just to add?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, that's the exact opposite of what was proposed, what the proposed amendment was. I think that the thing to do is if you oppose the amendment is just vote against the amendment, which would bring it back to the floor, and then it could be voted on again as a.
There isn't an amendment though. You're saying this amendment? Okay.
Right, because the amendment was to remove number 3. And that's really what's before the body right now. So
the amendment was
that was the motion.
Number 3. The motion was to.
Excuse me, the attorney and the clerk can figure this out. Attorney Barrett, Clerk Bruckman, can you read us the motion and if there was an amendment?
Yeah, let's go back to what was moved and what was seconded, and then what the amendment was and if that was seconded.
The original motion by Trustee Stokebrand was the approval of the proposed 2021 priorities from the DPW organizational studies, with the exception of recommendation number 3, which is route all customers inquiries to customer service staff in the clerk customer service department. There was no amendment until Trustee Bachhorst moved to amend, which did not have a second, to include number 3.
And there was
okay. I thought it, okay, my notes, I had it incorrect in my notes. I thought there was an initial motion to approve all of it and then it had been amended to remove number 3. Let me suggest to you though that you're trying to get to the same place, which is the board is trying to decide first whether or not to approve these priorities with or without number 3, that there's a motion on the floor. So if anyone that opposes removing number 3 votes against it and it fails, there will be another opportunity for somebody else to make a motion to approve all of the priorities. But technically,
you can't. Technically, you can't make it.
Yeah, you can.
I think you can. If here's the difference. I think if the original motion had been to approve all of the priorities as presented, and then there was an amendment that was seconded to remove number 3, and then a second amendment to put it back in, that's just the contrapositive of what was already proposed. But here the motion is basically to approve 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Really is that's what it is to say, okay, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. And so the amendment, I think, is just to add 3 back into that. Am I understanding it correctly?
Yes, that's what I'd like to see.
Okay, so when viewed under that lens, I think you can do that, but I don't know that you necessarily have to, because you could also make the argument that anyone that agrees with my position that we should approve all of them, I encourage you to vote no, and then there would be a failed motion, and then you could reconsider it. But technically, I don't think it's improper to make an amendment to say, okay, well, the motion was made to approve 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm making an amendment to add 3 back into the into the mix.
Can I?
Hold on. So we have heard from the attorney, and we have a motion, an amendment on the floor, but not a second. So before you further discussion, do you have a point of order that you need to address with the attorney?
I was going to second the motion if they're. But...
All right, go ahead.
So I was just going to say I'll second the motion just so we can take this. I don't.
Second amendment. Okay.
And if I could just. And the reason that I'm doing that is I'd like to take number 3 separately. I don't know if the votes are there, but I don't want to vote against the whole thing. If we can just take 3 independently, see if the votes are there. If they're not, then we can take the rest of it. That's my rationale.
Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, we will take a roll call. Can you please reread it?
Yeah. So the amendment is to include number 3 back into the motion, which is route all customer inquiries to customer service staff in the clerk customer service department. Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
No.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand.
No.
Trustee Carpenter.
No.
Trustee Ursing.
Yes.
President Rosick.
No.
Amendment fails 4-3.
Okay.
I'd like to change my vote.
Okay. Could you please record your vote to a yes or no?
No, she can't move to reconsider because she voted
I'm not
no.
moving to reconsider. I'm just changing my vote.
She can change her vote. So please record her vote as a.
It would be a nay then because she voted aye.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So now we
Can
have trustee
Can I
amendment.
make an amendment? I'd like to propose an amendment to add number 5, develop a comprehensive village capital asset management plan.
I'll second that. Sorry.
Sorry. Anything else in your motion?
I don't know if we should, if Leanne and Tyler would prefer that we like take something off or just add it. If they want us to take something else off, I can recommend some things to take off too, but I'll just add it for now.
Hold. So have you made your motion, or are you asking a question first? I just want.
Why don't I say let's add number 5 and remove recommendation 9 along data metrics and workload and performance data metrics.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to add number 5, and what is the title of that recommendation?
Develop a comprehensive village capital asset management plan.
And to remove number 9, which was?
Well, now I'm rethinking.
Yeah, I'm not seconding that.
Okay, so do you want to add, and then, or Tyler, do you want Tyler to answer your question before you make the motion?
I'll just say, let's just add the capital asset management plan.
Second.
So we have a motion to add and a second. Tyler, would you like to say anything?
I think that's fine. I think the comments that we heard is it's important to start it, try to make as much progress as we can with the understanding it might be a multi-year thing, but we want to get started on it sooner rather than later. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yes, I think. Trustee Warren, did he summarize your comments correctly? Okay.
Yeah, well, I agree with it. Yes.
Any further discussion? Trustee Buckles.
I just want to remind all board members, especially the new ones, that any decisions we make today, we can always change these later on regarding some of this. So if we're going to get stuck on a lot of the details, I would understand that we will have another opportunity to look at this in the future. So just trying to keep the meeting going along. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so we have a motion. Could you reread the motion and then take the roll call, please?
Yes. The amendment is to add item number 5, which is comprehensive village capital asset management plan.
Okay.
Trustee Menta,
Aye.
trustee Ursink,
So
Ask a question. You just have to.
I have a question about this vote here. I'm sorry.
I apologize.
What
Unless
was
it's
that?
parliamentary, is there a point of order, like a question? For the-
Technology and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I just need to know where we're at with number 3. So we're right now we're voting on the amendment to add this, but we're not voting on the whole list of recommendations right now, correct?
correct.
Got it. Yay.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Stokebrand,
Aye.
trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter,
Aye.
President Rosick.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Any questions about where we're at? Okay, I think we have a motion now on the floor that has been amended, and the clerk will read that.
Yes. So the motion is approval of the proposed 2021 priorities from the DPW organizational study, with the exception of recommendation number 3, route all customer service inquiries to customer service staff in the clerk customer service department, and to add number 5, comprehensive village capital asset management plan.
Thank you. Please does anyone have any questions?
Now I do.
Okay, trustee Ursink.
So, basically what trustee Bachhorst just said, I feel like Leanne and our staff put number 3 in pretty high in the list as something that they want to see done, which I agree with. So by voting for this, are we completely taking this out of discussion altogether, or is this something that we can still work with?
Tyler, I think we covered this. This is an action plan for 2021 at committee level.
Yeah, correct. And what I'm hearing, if this wants to be removed, we want to remove it because we don't want to go in the direction of routing customer service away from public works.
We don't want to discuss it as a priority in 2021. Is that correct?
I mean, I just want to confirm that's what I'm hearing that right.
Let me re-ask the question I'm confused now.
No.
The list provided as a staff recommendation, my understanding, as you stated earlier in the meeting, is the list that would be worked on in Public Works Committee. And it may take longer than a year, but it's the first priorities to work on from the study. So it doesn't say that the board is voting that it won't happen. It's saying that my understanding is the list will be forwarded to Public Works, and Public Works Committee will work on the items on the list during at least 2021.
Yeah, that's correct. That would be my understanding.
And maybe in 2022, you get to another item, which may be the customer service item.
Right. There's a lot of items that we hope that we take care of this year. So there's going to be other items that will move up for 2022 and years.
But just keeping it as the priority for 2021 for work. But it's not, I don't believe his question was, is it taking it off? Like we're saying no to doing that transfer. Is that correct, Tyler?
Yeah.
May still talk about that in the future.
Correct.
Okay. Does that help, Trustee Ursink?
Yeah, I just don't know why we wouldn't just keep it on at this point. So it can be discussed at the next level. Why remove it completely? We've just added something, and that's going to be open for discussion now in the Public Works Committee. Why not just leave this in and let Public Works Committee discuss this as well? Because I think for what I'm hearing, Tyler, we're just trying to cross-train a couple people in customer service to handle these calls a little bit more effectively. So this sounds like a really positive sort of thing for the village and productive thing for the staff. So why wouldn't we just include it right now with everything else? We just added capital,
And you would no. If you
capital
would
assets planning.
keep it in,
Right.
And work on it in 2021.
Yeah, let's just keep it in and have Public Works and just kind of keep this up for discussion. Why remove it completely right now? I just
That's
don't
the
understand that.
So you could vote no if you wanted to include it as a priority to work on.
Point of clarification as well. I mean, I'd like to hear the answer to that question.
Probably help clarify, and then Trustee Bachhorst. Rebecca?
Thank you. I'm still going to have a need to try to provide some customer service assistance to Public Works. And so while I recognize that people are not in favor of routing all calls through our customer service department, it is a service need that we need to try to help with. And I think that there is some general cross training that can be accomplished to assist with that without directing all calls through customer service and still maintaining them to primarily go through Public Works. But it does need some assistance.
Do we need to refer that to committee? This is the list that will be referred to committee to work
And
on.
point of order.
Yes.
Didn't we vote on an amendment to include number 3 and that amendment failed?
Yes.
So we've already discussed and voted on this. Why are we discussing it again?
So maybe.
I'd like to make an amendment if I can.
Wait, Clerk Brookman, is the motion correct that you read? Because I do believe Trustee Menta is correct. We did have an amendment failed. So why is it in there?
So the amendment was to include number 3 back into it, not have it removed. That's the amendment that failed.
Okay, so it's in. So
no, it's out.
It's out. I mean, so isn't the motion? Yeah, it's out. We don't.
In the motion, it's included as out. It's
you'd vote no
with the exception of the recommendation of number 3. The amendment was to include it. That's the one that failed.
Okay, so we do have a motion and second on the floor. If for any reason, let me clarify, and then we're going to take the vote. If for any reason you do not agree that number 3 should be out or number 5 should be in as a priority to work on in 2021, then you would vote no against the motion. The amended motion, not amended motion, but the motion, amended motion. So is that correct, Clerk Brookman?
Correct. So the motion has been amended twice. One amendment failed, one passed. So if you want number 3 to be included, you would vote no.
Thank you. Okay, one more question from Trustee Bachhorst, and then we'll take the roll.
And it's not necessarily a question. I guess it's more of a statement, and it's more of an appeal to the rest of the trustees and to you, President Rozek. When trustees have questions regarding process or information they want more information on, this is our only opportunity to speak as a governmental body legally together. So Trustee Ursink, as being one of the junior members here, also when Trustee Stokerbrand asked a lot of questions, some of these things might seem elementary to some of us, but these are good points and they're looking for discussion here, which is our job. Despite how some of the board members might think that this is, we don't speak to each other, we are here to deliberate and to determine what is important. And part of that is asking questions of each other. So I don't really appreciate glossing over when some trustees have questions and are looking for, clarification here. I agree with them, and I know that, but also I will say this, Trustee Ursink, don't worry. There's the operative word called all here. So let's just move on with the vote. But I would say the rest of you guys, let's work together here. We've proven that we need a lot of work in that regard.
Thank you so much. Okay, that was going to be the last question for us on the motion, the amended motion. So we will take roll call now.
Okay. So the motion is the approval of the proposed 2021 priorities from the DPW organizational study with the exception of recommendation number 3 and to add recommendation number 5, comprehensive village capital asset management plan. Trustee Ursink.
No.
Trustee Carpenter.
Yes.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Stokerbrand.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
President Rozek.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay, thank you so much. Great discussion. We'll now move on to number 10 on the agenda. Does anyone need a 5-minute quick break?
We're almost done, aren't we?
Manager Ewald.
I just wanted to relay that while I recognize you've removed routing all customer inquiries to customer service staff from the Public Works Department, I am still going to operationally need to do some cross training because it's necessary for purposes of our operations. And so while I recognize that it will not require policy level decisions coming out of the Public Works Committee or from this board. It will be necessary for portions of our operations. Thank you.
Okay. If we don't have a lot of reports, we'll go ahead and move on, and no one needs a break. We will go to number 10, reports to village officials. I at this time do not have a report, so I'll move on to village trustees. Any reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to village manager. Nope. Okay, so number 11, items for future agenda or consideration. Items for future consideration. Any items for future consideration? Trustee Warren.
I'm gonna try to make this sound coherent. So somebody help me if it doesn't, if they support my motion, but just building on the discussion from earlier in the meeting, I would just like to, instead of kind of giving informal direction, maybe just an item for future consideration, like refer method by which to increase access to diverse candidates to the HR committee, diverse candidates for village employment, to the or to the HRC, something like that.
We have a policy, maybe to clarify, we refer the policy for amendment or for future, consideration of including more language to do that. Do we have an existing policy? Rebecca?
I just wanted to provide some comment. This is the stage that we're actually at or in with our work with Sam Coleman right now. He's going to be doing, he sent out questionnaires to all of us in terms of what policies and procedures we do have. Tyler and I are both working in the village manager's office. So, one of the things we're providing comments on, or if we have the policies, if we don't, what are areas that we haven't touched that we need improvement upon, because one of his functions will be reviewing our current procedures, also providing recommendations. And I would anticipate that there will likely be comments and some thought that's going to be put into this in phase 2 of our work. It's just that we're embarking on that process right now.
Okay, so then I'll pull it then, and depending on if recommendations are needed to kind of get on the board agenda or do something at the board level, then I can submit it for future consideration then. But I'll pull it for now because we're going down that road.
Okay, thank you.
But we do have a hiring policy, correct? I know we have a purchasing policy. I just wanted to know. Tyler?
Well, it would be in the HR manual. We have a hiring section that goes through our process. So just so everyone knows, my goal when I come forward with the 2022 HR manual, it would have those policy concepts that you're looking for in the manual.
Okay, so it sounds like it's going to be addressed in 2021?
At the end of this year, correct.
Okay, so if you want to make a motion, you're more than welcome to make a motion, or
it sounds like I'm comfortable the work's in flight, and we'll kind of see what the year bears out.
Okay, sounds good. Any other future items for consideration?
Yes.
At
JP&L, we discussed open records policy, and our recommendation was going to have open records come to the full board. But last week we prioritized it to go to JP&L. So I think there was, we said we wanted to try to clarify if the full board wants to hear that at our next meeting, or if it should go straight to JP&L.
What was the item again? I apologize.
Open records policy.
Okay. There is a conflict. I think Trustee Stokbrand, so we're just trying to figure out what the board would prefer. Trustee Stokbrand.
I was just thinking in terms of workload, since Trustee Warren and Trustee Bockhorst and I will be doing DPW and police org, I thought that we had decided it would be beneficial then if JP&L could take on open records and 155, but I could be mistaken.
I did ask that question about 155. Tyler, you had said that was not prioritized. Is that correct? It's not in the memo. I mean, doesn't have it listed as a priority.
I don't have that in front of me, sorry.
But I believe open records was for JP&L and business and community relations maybe.
So the 5, Trustee Menta, did you have them in front of you just to?
Yeah, it says open records will go to JP&L. Capital plans to budget finance committee, special privilege and religious artifacts to CBNR, and equity will be decided after completion of phase 2 or 3.
Those are the 4 priorities that were supposedly voted on at the last meeting.
Well,
But
I don't think they were voted on. It was just, it says the village manager confirmed the consensus on this.
okay, so does that sound okay then to continue with that consensus?
I mean, I think the thought at JPNL, and Jessica, you may want to jump in, is that you know, it has been an item that we've been asking for a long time, and that consumes a lot of time and resources, and that you know, maybe an initial meeting with the full board might, I mean, I just, the disadvantage of a committee is it's just 3 of us, and there could be opinions from the other 3 that are not, you know, heard, unless we have an opportunity to vet it at full board. But I don't feel strongly about it, frankly.
Trustee Carpenter?
Today our motion was to move it to full board. You know, I don't feel strongly. In some ways, it might be nice that there are limited opinions so that we could get something, you know, sort of put together and drafted and then brought forth to the full board for a vote, which may be, you know, more efficient than all 7 of us providing our same opinions in multiple different ways. So, you know, I'm fine with it staying at JPNL. I just think it needs to be a priority and it needs to be at our next meeting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's probably wrong procedure to have asked the question right this moment. It was a recommendation from JPNL tonight to the full board in their motion. So we'll discuss it at full board when that motion is presented, when that recommendation is presented to us at the next meeting. So we will have this discussion of whether it should stay there or whether it should be delegated down. So I think that would be the proper time to talk about it.
Okay.
All right. So with that, is there any other items for future agenda? Trustee Stokebrand?
I guess I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. I guess the question is, if we take all this stuff to the full board, so we have the police organizational study, we have the DPW study, we have open records, and I'm losing my train of thought already. I'm just saying, I mean, I'm very pragmatic, and I'd rather do a few things well than put too many things on the plate and not be able to get through until midnight. And so that's just, you know, I would rather prioritize and put 1 to 2 things than throw everything, you know, that's
So,
just my feeling.
I apologize. If you weren't watching JPNL, you might not know what the motion was. And the motion was there's a complaint before JPNL tonight. They made a motion, they changed the motion, the recommended motion, and they made a motion and voted on it. And it was to forward the complaint to the full village board with a recommendation of yes or no, or to move forward or not move forward. And simultaneously just look at the open records policy. We then can at full board either take that recommendation or not, and then delegate down. So again, it'll come on the next board to decide. It'll be on the agenda, and we can talk about it at that time. That's probably the correct procedure. We can always delegate down, as you say, Trustee Stokebrand. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
So President Rozak?
Yes, Trustee Bachhorst.
What exactly is the item for future consideration that you guys are talking about right now? Because I'm not really clear about that.
Trustee Menta, I think we're withdrawing it, but go ahead.
I mean, is there a motion?
There was half motion and it wasn't seconded.
Okay, so no motion.
I don't really have a motion other than an update from the recommendation that was coming from JPNL.
Okay, this is items for future consideration. So, I mean, I guess maybe if we're out of order, that's fine. I just was unclear because there was no motion and we're having discussion about something else that's not on the agenda right now.
And I let it occur because it was talking about a future agenda. So thank you. Anything else, Trustee Stokebrand?
No, just let me know if you're ready for a motion to adjourn.
Go right ahead.
I move that we adjourn.
Second. Or second.
A motion by Trustee Stokebrand to adjourn, seconded by Trustee Ursink. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. See you next time. Thank you.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year.